Welcome to House Lux Estate, your premier destination for understanding the world of economics and real estate. At House Lux Estate, we aim to shed light on the complex intricacies of global economies and property markets, breaking down complicated concepts into digestible, engaging content. Our journey today takes us on an exploration of a fascinating subject that affects nations globally. We're delving into the reasons behind the phenomenon of weak currencies in certain countries. Today, we delve into an intriguing topic. Why do some countries have weak currencies? Stay tuned. Currency strength, a fascinating topic, is influenced by a myriad of factors. As the lifeblood of a nation's economy, currency serves as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. The strength or weakness of a currency is a reflection of that country's economic health in the eyes of the world. It's like a report card that provides an insight into how well a country's economy is doing. Currency strength can affect numerous aspects of everyday life, from the price of groceries to the cost of a vacation abroad. It also has far-reaching implications in the realm of international trade and investment. In the global economy, a country's currency is constantly compared against others. This comparison often leads to fluctuation in its value. Now let's explore some case studies to better understand why certain currencies are weaker than others. First, we take a look at Zimbabwe, a country that has experienced hyperinflation. Zimbabwe's story is one of economic turmoil, marked by a series of missteps that led to one of the most severe cases of hyperinflation in modern history. At the heart of Zimbabwe's economic woes was a combination of fiscal mismanagement, lack of foreign investment, and political instability. Let's set the scene. Zimbabwe gained independence in 1980, and for a time its economy was relatively stable. However, a series of misguided economic policies began to take their toll. The government embarked on an ambitious land reform program in the late 90s, which saw the seizure of farms from white owners and their redistribution to black Zimbabweans. This move, though politically popular, proved disastrous for the economy. You see, the new owners often lacked the necessary experience or resources to maintain productivity levels. Agricultural output plummeted, and Zimbabwe, once known as the breadbasket of Africa, found itself unable to feed its own people. Food shortages ensued, and the country's agricultural sector, which had been a key driver of its economy, was decimated. The government's response was to print more money to pay its debts, a move that only served to exacerbate the problem. As more money flooded into the market, the value of the Zimbabwean dollar fell drastically. Prices skyrocketed, and by November of 2008, Zimbabwe was in the throes of hyperinflation, with a monthly inflation rate of nearly 89.7 sextillion%. Yes, you heard that right, sextillion. In an attempt to stabilize the economy, the government eventually abandoned the Zimbabwean dollar in favor of the US dollar and other foreign currencies. But the damage was already done. The economy was in ruins, and the Zimbabwean dollar was effectively worthless. Zimbabwe's case is a stark example of how economic mismanagement can lead to a weak currency. The story of Zimbabwe serves as a cautionary tale for other nations about the dangers of fiscal irresponsibility and the importance of sound economic policies. Next, we turn our attention to Venezuela, another country grappling with a weak currency. Venezuela, a country rich in oil reserves, has been dealing with a severe economic downturn. This has resulted in the devaluation of its currency, the bolivar, which has been mainly driven by economic and political factors. The economic decline in Venezuela is, in part, due to the country's over-reliance on oil exports. When oil prices were high, Venezuela's economy was booming. However, when oil prices plummeted, the country was left in an economically vulnerable state. This overdependence on a single export commodity has made the country's economy and its currency extremely volatile. Inflation is another economic factor that has contributed to the devaluation of the bolivar. In fact, Venezuela has been grappling with hyperinflation, with prices doubling every few weeks. This rapid and high inflation rate has eroded the purchasing power of the bolivar, leading to its devaluation. The political landscape in Venezuela has also played a significant role in the country's economic woes and the devaluation of its currency. Political instability, coupled with economic mismanagement, has led to a lack of investor confidence. This has resulted in capital flight, with investors and businesses withdrawing their assets and investments from the country. As a result, the demand for the bolivar has plummeted, leading to its devaluation. Furthermore, the imposition of international sanctions on Venezuela due to its political issues has further exacerbated the country's economic problems. These sanctions have limited Venezuela's access to international markets and capital, thereby further devaluing its currency. In Venezuela, we see a clear example of how a country's economic and political conditions can significantly impact its currency. The devaluation of the bolivar is a direct result of the country's economic mismanagement, over-reliance on oil exports, hyperinflation, political instability, and international sanctions. In Venezuela, we see how political instability can wreak havoc on a country's currency. Now, let's consider Japan, a developed country with a surprisingly weak currency. Japan, known for its technological innovation and economic prowess, has a currency that, on the surface, might appear weak. But is it really? Let's take a closer look. The Japanese yen is often considered weak because of its relatively low value when compared to the US dollar or the euro. But this isn't an accident. It is the result of deliberate economic policies. Japan's central bank, the Bank of Japan, has been implementing what's known as a loose monetary policy for many years. This means they keep interest rates low and pump money into the economy, which increases the supply of yen and in turn lowers its value. But why would they want to do this? Well, a weak yen actually has several benefits for Japan. Firstly, it makes Japanese goods cheaper and more competitive in the global market. This is crucial for an export-driven economy like Japan's, home to global giants like Toyota, Sony, and Panasonic. Secondly, a weak yen can help fight deflation. Japan has been grappling with deflation for many years now. When prices fall, people tend to hold off on spending, which can slow down the economy. A weak yen helps to raise prices, encouraging people to spend and thus boosting the economy. However, this policy isn't without its drawbacks. For instance, it makes imports more expensive, which can raise the cost of living. And while it may boost exports, it can also lead to trade imbalances and tensions with other countries. In conclusion, the weakness of the yen is not a sign of a struggling economy, but rather a strategic decision made by Japan's policymakers. It's a delicate balancing act, designed to stimulate the economy and maintain Japan's competitiveness on the global stage. Japan's case shows us that not all weak currencies are a result of economic or political instability. We've journeyed through different countries and explored the reasons behind their weak currencies, from the hyperinflation of Zimbabwe to the economic crisis in Venezuela and the intentional devaluation in Japan. We've seen that a multitude of factors contribute towards a country's currency weakness. In Zimbabwe, we saw a classic case of hyperinflation. An excessive increase in the money supply without a corresponding growth in economic output led to a rapid loss in the currency's purchasing power. This was further exacerbated by political instability and a lack of trust in the government's economic policies. Venezuela, on the other hand, is an example of the resource curse. Despite being rich in oil reserves, the country's over-reliance on this single commodity led to economic vulnerability. When oil prices plummeted, the government resorted to printing more money, resulting in hyperinflation similar to Zimbabwe. Our journey then took us to Japan, a country with a strong economy, but a weak currency by design. Japan's strategy of competitive devaluation is aimed at boosting exports. By keeping the yen weak, Japanese products become cheaper for foreign buyers, thus driving economic growth. While each of these countries presents a unique scenario, it's clear that the common thread tying them together is economic policy. Whether it's over-reliance on a single commodity, excessive money printing, or intentional devaluation for competitive advantage, the decisions made by a country's government play a crucial role in the strength of its currency. But remember, a weak currency isn't always a bad thing. As we saw in Japan's case, it can be a strategic move to spur economic growth. On the flip side, a strong currency might not always be beneficial, as it can make a country's exports more expensive and less competitive on the global market. In the end, the strength of a currency is a reflection of a country's economic health and the global confidence in its future prospects. It's a complex dance between internal policies, external forces, and global perceptions. So next time you hear about a country's currency being weak or strong, remember the stories of Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and Japan. Remember that behind these simple terms, there's a world of economic intricacies and strategic decisions. Thank you for joining us at House Lux Estate. Remember, Understanding the nuances of economics helps us make sense of the world. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful content. Until next time.